If you want to keep your teeth, stop getting fillings and don't get a crown. This may sound like unusual advice coming from a dentist, but after treating thousands of patients over the past 20 years, I'm sticking to it. I'm Dr. Sean O'Barry, and there is a better way to fix teeth. It's called Biomimetic Dentistry. This video will explain why Biomimetic Dentistry is different and why it is so much better for you and your teeth. Most dentists in America practice some form of traditional dentistry. Traditional dentistry relies on mechanical retention. This means locking things together to get them to stay in place. Locking things together does not connect things to each other. It only keeps them from moving apart. For example, if this represents a tooth, then a filling would look like this. Notice that locking the filling into place requires separation of the top part of the tooth. This separation causes a weakening of the tooth. A separated tooth will start to crack. This crack continues to advance. Sometimes this is to the side. Sometimes this is straight down the tooth. If the crack goes straight down the tooth, it can split the tooth in half. There is no way to repair this, and the tooth has to come out. If the crack goes to the side, part of the tooth ends up breaking off. A new, larger filling replaces this. Notice that the larger filling is not locked in as well. This leads to the filling falling out. New fillings are done and redone until the tooth needs a crown. Notice that a crown requires removing the outside of the tooth. This allows the crown to lock onto the tooth. Removing this much tooth structure compromises and weakens the tooth. This leads to one or both of the following situations. The tooth breaks or the tooth hurts. If the tooth breaks, the tooth gets cut down more, and the tooth gets a new crown. If the tooth hurts, the tooth gets a root canal. Each of these procedures takes away more tooth structure. It weakens the tooth and sets the tooth up for failure. Crowns are done and redone until we have no other option than remove the tooth. Add up the cost of all these treatments, and one tooth ends up costing thousands of dollars. This expensive, downward spiraling cycle is what we call the tooth cycle of death. Every failure leads the tooth closer and closer to removal. Now, let's compare this to biomimetic dentistry. Biomimetic dentistry relies on not locking things together. Biomimetic restorations rely on adhesion to connect restorative material to the tooth. The restorative material has characteristics similar to the tooth, and the connection is as strong or stronger than the tooth itself. This reconnects the tooth. The tooth no longer acts separated, and the tooth goes back to having its original strength. With biomimetic dentistry, the worst case scenario is that the material breaks. The great thing about this is that the tooth remains protected. The restoration can be repaired or replaced without having to cut down the tooth. No amount of material failures will lead to tooth loss. Biomimetic dentistry stops the downward cycle that leads to losing teeth. To illustrate the difference between traditional and biomimetic dentistry, I will use an analogy. Once there was a town located in a valley surrounded by mountains. The only road leading to the town came down a steep mountain pass. At the top of the pass there was a sharp turn. This led to many cars driving off the road and crashing down the mountain. People in the town did not like people dying or getting injured. So someone proposed a plan. The plan involved placing an ambulance at the bottom of the mountain. So when there was a crash, the ambulance would already be there. They would be able to start treating the injured persons while taking them to the hospital. The ambulance system worked. It kept the injured people alive. As a result, the hospital thrived. It attracted the best medical staff and doctors. It became equipped with the most state-of-the-art equipment. But the hospital became expensive. Soon, all the town's resources were going to funding the hospital and ambulance system. The town was becoming broke. Looking at the problem from a different perspective, one day someone proposed a new plan. Install a guardrail around the sharp turn. That way, no one drives off the cliff. Biomimetic dentistry is that guardrail. Now, to be fully transparent, the guardrail is not perfect. For example, if you are driving a tank, the guardrail would not stop you from driving that tank over the guardrail and straight off the cliff. And from time to time, the guardrail may need repair. But when you weigh the downsides of a guardrail against the downsides of not having a guardrail, the better choice becomes obvious. Biomimetic dentistry is the safest, healthiest, and least problematic type of dentistry available. It will help you save your teeth, save your time, and save your money. And it will help you avoid the pain and inconvenience of having tooth problems. Thanks for watching.